Hey everyone, Sparks back with another Goddess of Victory Nikke video, Smol White's Matter 2. This is a review and test of Smol White Innocent Days, going over all her skills, where she shines, squads, builds, etc. So just like OG version, Smol White is a burst 3 iron type attacker with an assault rifle. However, as most of you guys probably know, this is where the similarities stop. Original I can't even say regular Snow White now, I'm so used to saying Smol White. Original Snow White is extremely deadly single target boss killer. This version is better at dealing with large groups of enemies, and she's a free character, so let's see if she's actually good or just fodder for new players. Her skill 1 activates after landing 30 normal attacks and increases her own ammo by 25% for 5 seconds and can stack up to 5 times. Additionally, it will deal 188% of final attack as damage to anything it hits. This is pretty strong, and it's a skill that's going to be good in almost any situation. She can get a high attack stat due to being a pilgrim attacker, and anything that says final attack is always a plus. Her ability to make her clip bigger and bigger is also great for clearing groups of enemies or just keeping constant DPS on a boss. Skill 2 activates after landing 50 normal attacks and deals over 60% of final attack to all enemies. Now, it's unfortunately, only 60%, but still, final attack is always good, and this is a great ability to deal with large groups of enemies. However, it's not so useful against bosses. On the other hand, it has a second effect that activates during full burst and increases attack during burst by 21% for 10 seconds. This is a really nice boost that actually makes her deal very solid damage, and if she's been invested in. Now, her burst is a 40-second cooldown, of course, as you would expect, and instead of being a big attack or making a shield or something like most bursts would do, it basically just gives her a bunch of buffs. So the number of hits needed to trigger her skill 2 effect that deals damage to the whole screen is reduced by 20 for 10 seconds. It also nearly doubles her attack for 10 seconds and gives her unlimited ammo for 10 seconds. So she's going to be continuously bombarding the field with AoE damage and unlimited ammo, all with a buff to her attack during full burst. This is actually pretty insane in the right stages, which I will point out later on in the video. Now, let's talk about gear. So for cubes, I would lean into giving her more ammo with the Bastion cube. My second choice is Wingman cube, and giving her hit rate up is probably third if you just don't really have the other options available to you. For overloads, of course, prioritizing the helmet if you can, and on the stat lines, you definitely want attack as usual with your DPS units. Other great options are max ammo up, and hit rate and crit rate are fine too. Basically, you want her to have as high of a final attack stat as possible and as much ammo as possible. Both of these will really help the efficacy of her skills that we just talked about. So for squad mates, she doesn't really depend on anything really heavily, so you can probably drop her into most squads and get decent results. But my favorite squad with Smol White was Leader, Blanc Noir, and either Red Hood or Modernia. Now, besides these just being really strong units that are good almost everywhere, they are particularly strong and have good synergy with Smol White. So going back to the idea of pumping final attack and ammo, you'll get both from Leader for Smol White as well as both from Noir. Plus, Blanc will help her deal greater damage against bosses. So if using Red Hood, burst with her and Smol White. If using Modernia, burst with Smol White and Noir. However, if you're going for a campaign stage instead of a boss or tower, then burst with Modernia instead of Noir. Another reason I like this is because Modernia is super good at clearing groups of enemies, so she has the same goals as Smol White. If you're fighting a boss, Red Hood and Smol White can also be effective together because they're both iron types, so they're going to share that weak point damage. And speaking of that, actually Rupee is a decent burst 2 option to use with Smol White as well. Again, she's an iron type attacker, and she also has buffs for other iron types. So if you're liking this video and you want more Nikke videos, please subscribe. I know a lot of you guys watch but haven't actually hit that sub button yet, and it would seriously help me out a lot if you did, so thank you. Okay, so I did some shooting range tests, and Smol White team managed over 232 million damage. Now, using the same team but replacing Smol White with Privity, it did 227 million. Again, replacing her with Scarlet did a whopping 446 million, and then finally swapping in Haran got 263 million. Now, Scarlet is definitely a bit of an outlier here. Keep in mind, my Scarlet is extremely built with 4 overloads, good stat lines, core 2, and all 10 skills. I would expect, you know, even a lower investment Scarlet to probably still outdamage Smol White, but probably not by a huge margin. This wasn't a great team for Privity either, but she is a good unit that a lot of new players will probably have on their campaign teams, and in this situation, Smol White came out a bit ahead with similar investment. Haran, another pilgrim that is known to be very good at clearing large groups of enemies, performed a bit better than Smol White, again with very similar levels of investment as my Smol White, but not by a huge margin. And for the record, my Smol White is core 1, all level 4 skills, and has an overloaded helmet and gloves. So the idea of these shooting range tests is that I wanted to compare her to other units that are good at clearing mobs, and she lines up decently well with them, about in the middle. So I've enjoyed using Smol White, and I'm currently unironically using her in Chapter 25 of the campaign right now. She's not a new player only unit. She is capable even at high levels. However, if you have a really strong account like mine, you'll probably have slightly better options in most situations. She can even be effective against bosses, such as taking down a Gravedigger, or whoever you're fighting, honestly. I think one of the places she's really legitimately top tier is on those annoying zone control stages. Her continuous firing and large AoE attacks are super useful in that situation, and she has performed really well for me on those stages. So if you are a newer player and starting around the anniversary, I wouldn't be afraid to invest in her. Don't think like you're wasting your resources on her. Unless you re-rolled for a god account, it could be a very long time before you get a lot of units that are legitimately stronger than her. You probably pulled Red Hood as well, who is a good partner for her. And once you get into raids, you're going to need at least 10 plus strong burst 3 attackers. I know that sounds like a lot, but Smol White can certainly fill one of those roles. She's also going to help you push campaign and tower a lot. Now, if you're a veteran player, you can still find uses for her. She can still be useful in scenarios I've mentioned, and if you have a stupid amount of pilgrim gear like me, don't be afraid to use those overloads. Remember, she's only going to get better and better with investment because of all those final attack stat abilities. She's a lot of fun to use too. Oh, and just like her other version, don't even use her in Arena. It's not going to be great. And by the way, if you didn't already know this, you can buy her spare bodies randomly in the shop. So save those black mileage tickets, use them on her whenever you see them. This could seriously make her a monster that will outpace the build you could realistically do with most of your other pilgrims. Alright, subscribe for more videos and streams every week. See you later.